Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar tonight, Rare Mammals of Belgrade. My name is Sadie, and I'm the Fossil Project Coordinator, and I'll be with you tonight along with Bruce McFadden to talk about our upcoming research at the Belgrade Mine. Before we get started, we do have a little bit of housekeeping, especially for those who have never attended a webinar before. To start, this webinar will end no later than 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You do not need a microphone. As long as you can hear us and see the PowerPoint, you're good to go. If you want to ask questions or make a comment at any time, please feel free to type into the chat box. If you're having trouble with the technology Adobe Connect, the best thing to do is exit out of the program and come on back in, or type into the chat box for technical support and we'll see if we can help. After the webinar, we have a survey that we'd appreciate you taking to give us feedback on the program and how it went. And finally, if you don't get a chance to stay for the whole thing or want to watch it again, we'll post a recording of this webinar on myfossil.org. Our outline for tonight is as follows. Bruce is going to go over the research to be accomplished at Belgrade and also the research that's been done thus far. Then there'll be a chance for Q&A. Next, I'll talk about the trip logistics for those who will be participating with us next week. We'll have another round of Q&A and then we'll conclude for the evening. So to begin with our first section, I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, a distinguished professor here at the Florida Museum of Natural History. Bruce, I'm going to turn on your microphone and then you can take it away.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, you sound good.
Excellent, good. Welcome everybody. So I want to give you about a 20-minute introduction to Belgrade. I know many of you have collected fossils from Belgrade, and it's a really exciting place in terms of the research that I'm going to share with you. And let me just get to the next slide. Good. First, I want to thank folks. This research that we're going to be doing on the field trip next Friday is a partnership between the special friends of the Aurora Fossil Museum and our museum at the University of Florida. And all this would not be possible without the generous support from the National Science Foundation for the My Fossil project. There's some people specifically I'd like to thank for their hard work. Lee Cohn, president of the Special Friends, has been instrumental in getting permission for us to have access and for working with us to make this happen. Sadie Mills of our Fossil project has obviously been very important in coordinating all aspects of not just the project but the field trip as well. I have some other research partners involved in this. Linda McCall, Julie Niederkorn, who's with us tonight. Hi, Julie. Dave Bohaska from the Smithsonian and my graduate student Jeanette Pirlo. We're all working on this project together. And I'd also like to do, I'd like to have a shout out to Doug Fesca, who's the plant manager at Belgrade Quarry in Martin Marietta. And thanks to discussions between Lee and Doug, we're going to have a special opportunity. And again, I want to thank Lee for his leadership in this. And to thank all of you, we have a nice turnout tonight. Thank all of you for your interest both in the project as well as the webinar tonight. I also want to send greetings because I'm actually in a hotel room in the Bronx, New York, and I send greetings from the American Museum of Natural History in New York, where I'm working on comparing Belgrade fossils that have been collected previously to collections in the Vertebrate Paleontology Division of the American Museum of Natural History. So why Belgrade? Why is Belgrade important? Well, it's well known to the fossil community on the East Coast. Many of you have collected from Belgrade, more so even than I have. I've been there 5 times. I love going there. And I know many of you have been there many more times than that. You've collected lots of fossils. You've collected lots of beautiful invertebrate shells, shark's teeth. But some of the best fossils from Belgrade in terms of the research that I'm interested in are virtually unknown, or shall we say poorly represented. And that's what I'm going to talk with you about tonight. A little bit about the background. If you want to delve into the geology of this area, there's a wonderful publication about the geology of the Atlantic coastal plain of eastern coastal North Carolina. And this publication, it's technical, but it's comprehensive. You can get it free online. You don't have to pay for it. You just go to that link and you can get it online, download the PDF, and you're good to go in terms of the understanding the geologic background and the stratigraphy, or the study of the rocks from this area. And one of the particular areas called Location 20 represents exactly where we're going to be collecting fossils on next Friday. And this is the rock column. The stratigraphy is the study of layered rocks, and this is a graphic representation of the rocks from the Belgrade Quarry Locality 20, and you can see a photograph of the outcrops of these fossils in the left-hand corner. In the upper part of this photograph, you'll see some dark sediments just below the grass surface. And from those sediments those are the sediments of interest in the upper part of the locality 20 section that we're going to be looking for fossils. Looking for fossils on Friday. Okay, why am I interested, or why are we interested in what's called the lower Miocene? If you read the writing to the left, in the different time zones, it's called the Belgrade Formation. It's a small unit, about 3 meters thick, shown by the arrow. And the reason that I'm interested in this fossil locality, because although there are many shells and many shark teeth, marine mammals, turtle shells, etc., I'm interested in the rare land mammals that many of you have collected over the years from this particular zone at Belgrade. And based on what we know about the age and the kinds of fossils that are represented from the collections, the photo in the upper right actually is a photograph of fossils that some of you have donated to the Smithsonian, and I currently have those fossils on loan and comparing those to fossils at the American Museum of Natural History. The fossils that we have represented at Belgrade are just like the one that represent the kinds of animals that you see in this famous J. maternus. Let me see if I can draw an arrow here, get a pointer. Yeah. This is the famous J. maternus mural in the Smithsonian, and it depicts life in North America about 20 million years ago during a time period that geologists called Aurora. It's early Miocene in age. Can you see, would somebody just see, let me know if you see the green pointer, please. Good. Okay, let's move on then. So Nebraska 20 million years ago, for those of you who have ever been in the Agate Fossil Beds National Monument, there's a little museum there, and they preserve bone beds of fossils that were preserved chock-a-block. They're just loaded with fossils, and these were collected by field crews from large museums like the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh and the University of Nebraska State Museum in Lincoln, and they represent those fossils, and the collections in those museums and other museums represent the best evidence for what life was like in North America 20 million years ago during the early Miocene, what I called just a few minutes ago the Aurora land mammal age. So I'm arguing here that the fossils from the rare fossils from the Belgrade are the same age, early Miocene. They're most likely Aurora in age. And Aurora or early Miocene land mammals are found throughout North America. They're fairly rare on the East Coast. There's a poorly known locality in, just a second here, New Jersey and Delaware. 2 localities actually, but they're not well known. The localities from Florida Museum of Natural History, from North Central Florida, are pretty well known. There's an important locality done as a master's project at Louisiana State University. Mexico, there is a locality. Southern California, some classic John Day fossil beds in Oregon, but by far the most plentiful fossils coming from this time zone is from the Agate Springs Fossil Bed National Monument in Nebraska. I didn't mention, excuse me, let me go back. And last but not least, we just recently concluded excavations of early Miocene fossils from along the Panama Canal, and we're collecting fossils that are the exact same age as Belgrade, Nebraska, and all these other localities. And here's an example of what it's like to collect fossils in Panama. This was a field crew of ours with student interns from about 2013, 2014 on the left-hand side. And now that I'm figuring out how to use this pointer, in one block here they have a shoulder blade or a scapula of a rhinoceros, and then a lower jaw with its teeth of a bear dog that was collected right along the Panama Canal. And these are the same types of fossils that we're finding in North America in places like Belgrade. Although we haven't found a bear dog yet, the challenge would be whoever finds the bear dog will be a star on Friday. Okay. We know, based on the kinds of animals that are found in Panama and something about the climate that goes along with the fossils based on the deposits, that unlike the dry grasslands that you saw in the Maternus mural about 10 years ago, 10 slides ago, in Panama, it was more tropical. We see the actual animals that used to live in the tropical rainforest of the Americas are depicted in this mural, which is represented based on the fossils from Panama. And the interesting thing is that the kinds of fossils that we find in Panama, we find all throughout North America, but they were living in different habitats, but they were mostly the same kinds of fossils. Belgrade is really interesting because of some of the land mammals that you have collected. Here's Bradley Dixon about a year or so ago sent us the fragments of a fossil which I was really interested in. And after let me get the arrow here. This was the way the fossil came out in the field. Bradley was kind enough to send us this fossil for study because it looked really interesting to me. And after our preparator put it back together, this is what the fossil looks like. It's a beautiful specimen of an animal called an anthracothere, and I'm studying it right now. And based on the shape of the teeth, I can tell, based on the shape of this area right here, I can tell exactly what type of it's a pig-like animal called an anthracothere, and the shape of the upper molar teeth tell me exactly what kind of genus it is. It's called Aretatherium. That's not really important to know, but what we should just say is that every time people go to Belgrade, there's the possibility of finding more interesting fossils.
Okay. One moment, Bruce. We lost you.
Likewise,
Can you repeat
this
what you said?
Excuse me. Yeah.
Bruce, we lost you for the last part. Can you repeat about the anthracothere tooth? Yeah, about telling the correct genus.
On the last slide?
Where we lost you.
Good. So the genus of the anthracothere I know based on my comparisons with similar animals in the collections at the American Museum. This isn't a genus that's known from Panama. It's also known from all around North America. This genus is called Aretatherium. That is not really that important. The cool thing is that I can tell based on the fossil that was collected by Bradley Dixon the exact animal that it represents. So the cool thing is that through important fossils that are collected, we can, even though they're very fragmentary, we can actually tell what animal this belonged to.
Yes.
Was that okay, Sadie? Everything's okay? Good. Okay, I'm going to move on. So, this fossil right here is a tooth of another large, in fact, it's a very large animal called either Dinohyus or Daenodon, and you can see the animal, a skeletal reconstruction of this animal that was in a museum. Obviously, it was about 100. This is an old photograph, but it was a very important find of skeletons that were put back together from Agate Springs Fossil Bed National Monument about 125 years ago when the excavations were made. I actually think this is a skeleton on display, probably at the Carnegie Museum. And down at the bottom here is a beautiful lifelike reconstruction of Daenodon from the same area, and this is in a diorama display at the Denver Museum of Natural History. So I want to share with you current research that I'm doing literally today. This is the way I study the fossils at the at the museum. Behind the scenes in the research collections, there are 10 floors of fossils. And what I do is I take all the fossils, I put them on the cart, and I roll them around. I make comparisons with existing fossils that have been previously identified from the fossil collections in the Division of Vertebrate Paleontology at the American Museum of Natural History. So that's a background. Let's talk about the game plan for our field trip, what we're going to do. Again, thanks to the special friends of the Aurora Fossil Museum, in particular Lee. I'm very excited that we're going to be able to make this happen. It truly is a wonderful partnership between citizens and scientists, and that's something that is a goal of the Fossil Project, and we're very excited that this is really the first large project of its kind that we're able to mobilize as a result of this kind of partnership. So this is really cool. First thing we're going to do is surface prospecting. Many of you have done surface prospecting. We're just going to go along the fossil piles, but I should back up and say we have a special opportunity, because you see these 5 piles here. They were excavated, and they represent 300 tons of fossil material from the upper 5 meters of the section where we know are the fossil deposits. The cool thing about this is, and this is thanks to Doug Fesco and the workers, the excavators at the mine, Lee convinced Doug that when we would go out on this field trip, we would like to exploit the specific zone where we know the fossils are based on the stratigraphy, because in the past we just sort of, it's hit or miss what we're going to find when we're doing surface prospecting. But here what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on looking in fossils from these specific piles, which are hopefully going to be the ones where we'll find these early Miocene land mammals and other animals. Typically what we do is we surface prospect, just going along the surface looking for shark's teeth or shells or what have you. I should tell you that based on the reading of that paper that I cited earlier on in this talk, when you find these large clams, or excuse me, these large oysters, these typically are indicative, not always, but in some cases, they're indicative of the kinds of fossil deposits that we're looking. So this is a hint that we're getting warm. It's not always the case, because you find the oysters in other places, but once we find fossil deposits, fossils weathering out of the surface, and you find clams like, bivalves like this, or oysters, there's a higher probability that we're also going to find land mammal teeth and other fragments of interest. We're also going to do dry screening. Dry screening is like wet screening, but instead of using a river or a water source, we're not going to have a water source. We're just going to shake the screens back and forth. If any of you have particular screens that you'd like to use, please bring them. We will have a pile of them. We will have a group of screens. The more the better, though, if you want to bring some. And what we'll do is we'll just take the soft sediment, and we'll put it in the screens, and we'll shake it back and forth. And we're going to bring the matrix, the concentrate, that doesn't sift through the screens, and hopefully that will concentrate some of the fossils that don't pass through the screens, like you see in this photograph here. So the significance of what we're doing is the fossils from Belgrade are rare. And they're very important for us to understand what life was like in the northeastern United States or northeastern North America 20 million years ago. And there are many reasons. So perhaps more importantly, why should we care about all this? Because as scientists or paleontologists, we're very interested in how animals adapt to different environments. The same animals that you find in the tropical rainforests of Panama, we're also going to find presumably we find them in places like Agate Springs National Monument, that's based on the beautiful mural by Jay Maternus. And I also predict that we're going to find more of the same animals in Belgrade. But the question is, what was North Carolina like 20 million years ago? Was it more dry like you see here, or was it more tropical or forested like you see here? We're going to find this out. We're going to understand what life was like 20 million years ago. We'll understand the various types of animals there, and perhaps be able to better understand why they became extinct and what kind of environments that they lived in when the deposits from Belgrade and other early Miocene localities were made 20 million years ago. Thank you. So I guess we have time for questions now. Let me go to the next slide. Yes, we have time for question, but to get the ball rolling here, why don't some of you type in, what would you like to learn about the trip that we're going to take next Friday? Is there anything that we can help this make it a better learning experience? Anybody could just type in the chat box, and that's the way we'll start the Q&A. Oh, thank you for letting me dream. I would love to find somebody to find a bear dog. That would be really cool. I see Linda's typing. That's great. Welcome, Linda. Yeah, so we'll be able to. That's a good question. We'll be able to determine the type of environment that was present at Belgrade, based on the kinds of mammals that we're going to find. We can tell whether they were primarily forest dwellers, or they might have been more open country herbivores. And we might also be able to, if we get enough fossils, actually do a chemical analysis of the teeth and find out the kinds of vegetation, the chemistry of the kinds of vegetation based on their teeth that they preserve in their teeth, which will tell us something about kinds of plants that they were eating. Linda, how small are the size of the fossils you're screening for? Window screen is good. That would get everything but the tiniest fossils that might pass through. If we use window screen, that would be really good. Will you be able to tell the temperature and average rainfall at the time? Perhaps if we do subsequent geochemical studies, yes, we might. Why are the fossils? They're not found. Interesting. Yes, Tina, they are found in association with oysters because I think that, well, oysters indicate very, very shallow water environments, and I think these animals, the land animals, the anthracotheres, the rhinoceroses, the horses, the giant pigs, were living probably in marshy areas very close to the shore where the oysters are found. So it's a combination of very shallow water marine environments, which is conducive to oysters living, and then also the land mammals living in the marshy environments right next to the shallow marine environments. Good question. Lee's typing a very long question. Do the animals that we have in museums from Belgrade indicate environments like Nebraska or Panama? Lee, that's another good question. We don't have enough of them yet. If I had to guess, I think they're probably indicating a forested environment, but I'd love to find some more. The more types of plant-eating mammals that we find, the more we'll be able to tell the relative amount of forested environments or woodlands relative to more open country, scrub-like environments. Yeah, Cindy, well, that's a really good question. So far, everything that's been found are isolated fragments, teeth, fragments of long bones, etc. We're hoping, in the best of all worlds, that given the fact that these piles have been sequestered, moved off to the side for us, we might find some things that are in association. Really, to find a chance of articulation, what we would have to do is go up and dig in the outcrop itself, and because of safety reasons, we're not going to be able to do that this time, and I doubt that we'll ever be able to do it. The mine operators, Doug in particular, have gone overboard, allowing us to do what we've already proposed to do, and this is a wonderful opportunity. I'm just hoping we're going to find isolated teeth and bones that will be of interest. You're going to Nebraska next week. Is there anything I can look for there? Not that I can think of, but if I do, I'll certainly let you know. Thanks, Linda. Good question. Are plant fossils found in Belgrade? So far as I know, I don't think so. But we actually haven't been looking for them. There might be some fossil roots. It'd be wonderful if we could find some plant fossils on pieces of sandstone that might have fossilized. So those are not out of the realm of those are possible to find, and it would be great if we could find them. Petrified wood. Now, Julie, I think there has been petrified wood there, and it'd be interesting for somebody to study it. I have not myself collected any, but it'd be great if we could. Yes, Linda, you have some. So what we could do is that would be a cool little study if we could find if we could section the fossil wood, we could tell something about the ancient seasonality and climate. Will rain likely help us find fossils on the surface of the piles? Well, we certainly hope so. Okay, so the wood's not very well preserved, but let's see what you get. I can bring it back, and we have special people who are specialists in fossil wood. Steve Manchester, our fossil plant guy here, and he might be able to tell us something that might help us. The fact it's not good for sectioning, that's okay. Yeah, that's the problem. The problem with Belgrade is that things are jumbled up and they're mixed typically. So that's why getting these piles where we know where most of it's from limits the possibilities of the age of where the fossils are found from. That's why it's so exciting. Are there other marine fossils in this area? Yes, there will be, but they would probably have to be marine fossils that live in the surf or shallow environment, similar to the kinds of fossils, similar to the environments of oysters, for example. Yeah, good question, Tina. About a dozen species of mammal fossils have been found, so land mammal fossils have been found so far. I'm hoping to round out that and continue to build what we know based on the fossils that have been collected. But around 10 to a dozen so far. Mostly plant-eating, cloven-hoofed animals, pigs and their relatives, but we're also finding horses, and Julie's found some rhinoceros, and there's also a tapir that's been found. So we're past 7:30, and we want to have more time for us to make sure that you all are on board in terms of the trip logistics for next week. And I'm going to thank you for the questions. This was really great. I'm going to go ahead and mute my microphone and turn the program back over to the folks at the museum, and they.
Thank you, Bruce. I think we all learned a lot. For our participants, if you continue to have questions, please go ahead and type them in because we'll save them and do a second round of Q&A here in a little bit. So next part of our conversation is going to be geared towards people who are participating in our project next week, but all are welcome to stay and listen to find out what we're going to be doing. So we're just going to do some basic trip logistics. For those who are traveling with the Fossil Project, we're going to be sending out a more detailed travel schedule by next week. But for an overview, on Thursday, everyone's going to arrive to our home base in New Bern, North Carolina. Then Friday morning, we're going to start bright and early and head to the mine. We are going to attend a mine safety orientation, and then Bruce and some of the Florida Museum graduate students will help us get oriented at the spoil piles. We hope to spend about 3 to 4 hours there digging and hopefully finding quite a bit. Then Friday afternoon, we'll join the special friends of the Aurora Fossil Museum for dinner. We're really grateful to them for that. And then experience the Aurora Fossil Festival opening ceremony. Saturday, the Fossil Festival is all day, and unfortunately, Saturday and early Sunday, our participants will be departing for home. On the day of the dig, it is important that we have the proper safety equipment. This is dictated by the mine manager, and we really want to make sure we are in compliance with everything that they've laid out for us. So that means please wear sturdy work shoes that go above the ankle. Steel-toed is preferred, but a sturdy hiking boot will work too. Long pants are a must. And then the following safety equipment must be worn, but if you're a fossil participant, we will be likely able to provide this for you. And this includes safety glasses, a hard hat, and a high visibility vest, like a bright orange vest. It's always a good idea to bring a water and a water bottle, sunscreen, and snacks to keep you feeling hydrated and protected while you're out there in the sun, hopefully finding some great fossils. The other really exciting part of the trip is the Aurora Fossil Festival, and I wanted to highlight some things about it for you to get excited about. The first is an opportunity to find more fossils. The festival has spoil piles from the Aurora PCS mine, so if you want to dig in those, you should bring shovels and screens and/or a collecting bag to dig at the festival. And you can see in the photo that adults and kids alike enjoy this, so don't be afraid to get in there and look around. There also is a great lecture series at the Fossil Festival. This year it's featuring a talk on walruses in the Carolinas by Sarah Bosnecker of the Mace Brown Museum at the College of Charleston, and also a talk on the life and times of Megalodon by Dr. Dana Irrett of the New Jersey State Museum. There's also fossil displays, education tents, a fossil auction, a parade, and more. So be sure to check out the Fossil Festival website to plan out your time there and make sure you hit all of the events you'd like to see. If you're one of our participants, we're going to be having you make your final preparation, so please check your email for final schedule and any travel updates we may send you. Make sure you have the proper clothing and shoes for the mine, and prepare yourself for a fun fossil-filled weekend. We're really excited to have everyone and hopefully accomplish some good research too. So with that, went by pretty quickly. If there are any remaining questions, either about Belgrade and dig logistics or about the research aspects and what we hope to find, now is a good time to type them in. And of course, if you think of a question later, please don't hesitate to send us an email at any point. Looks like Bruce is typing here. We'll wait for him to finish. Great question, Bruce. Will there be a cell phone contact list? We're working on that, and there will definitely be a contact list for fossil staff, and we'll be collecting participant numbers too, so we can all stay in contact. Great question. During the festival, Fossil will have a table at the community center, so that will always be a good place to stop by and say hello during the festival, or if you want to take a break and hang out with us at the table and do some fossil education too. We have a great question from Tina. I believe that if you wear eyeglasses, that's an acceptable substitute for safety glasses. Good question. And Sherry, I have the survey link. Thank you for being here with us. We have been following the weather very closely, and as of right now, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful, sunshiny morning for us. So keep your fingers crossed it stays that way, and we'll have a beautiful day out there on the spoil piles. Tina asks another great question about the vests being class 3 or class 2, and it's clear you already know more about vests than I do. But I believe the class 2 sleeveless will be just fine, and we'll have some extras too if you have the wrong kind. Everyone confirms sleeveless is just fine. And we have several people doing a great reminder. Please make sure the vests are orange and not yellow. That helps distinguish mine workers from participants at the mine. Well, that looks like all of our questions for the moment, but again, please contact us if you think of something else. We're happy to answer questions about the research or the trip logistics. With that, we're going to go ahead and conclude our program. We really appreciate you being here with us tonight, so thank you so much. For future fossil events, such as the Citizen Science Project or a webinar, follow us on our social media accounts and our website, myfossil.org. If you didn't get a chance to watch this whole thing, or you want to watch it again or share it with family or friends, this will be recorded and uploaded under the resources tab at myfossil.org. And then finally, if you would be so kind, we'd appreciate you taking our survey. You can click the link right from the presentation. And that just gives you an opportunity to give feedback on this program and help us improve for the future. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing several of you next week. Have a good evening.